Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Runways and Byways Travel Podcast. This is episode 2. If you're new here, my name is Julia, and I'm your host.
And I'm Katie, and I'm your other host.
So, today we're going to be talking about a surprise, and our surprise topic is actually traveling with a surprise destination. So, we did this recently. We did this a little over a month ago. We went to a surprise destination using a surprise travel agency. So we booked the trip, we gave them our money, and we had no idea where we were going. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But first, as always, we've only had one episode, but starting from here, we're going to be doing a country trivia question at the beginning of every episode. So this is Katie's turn to ask me a question. So, Katie.
Perfect. So I am bringing it back to my roots. I am representing. So the question is, in what category did Ireland win its first Olympic gold medal in?
That's a hard one.
Yeah.
I don't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll
So do you
never
want to
get
wait
that.
until the end to guess it?
Yeah. I'll wait till the end, but I'm
Okay.
telling you
So
right
just,
now, it's gonna be wrong.
yeah, it's 100% going to be wrong, but it's actually a pretty interesting answer.
Okay. Yeah, so that means it's probably something unexpected.
Yes. So expect the unexpected.
Okay, so I'll guess something very outlandish and we'll see.
You might get it right if you do that.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna, but we'll see.
We'll see. I have faith in you.
I don't. At least someone does. Okay, so she'll tell us the answer at the end, so stick around to hear that. So we're going to be talking about our surprise trip today, like I said before. And we before we start, I just want to put a little disclaimer out there that if the audio is a little crazy today, we apologize. We're actually filming this a little differently than normal. We I forgot to mention this last episode, but I actually live in Florida now and Katie's still in New York. So normally when we record, I'll be in Florida and she'll be in New York and we're not near each other, but she's actually visiting me in Florida right now. So we're in the same house, but we're in two different rooms and we're battling with frequency issues. So just bear with us through this. So we apologize if it gets a little weird at some points, but we're trying our best.
It really shows the dedication that we have.
And it's kind of crazy just knowing you're on the other side of this wall and I'm talking to you, but like you're right here, but I feel like you're not.
And it's funny because I could see Julia on the camera and she can't see me.
Yeah. So I'm just talking to my computer, but she actually sees me and feels like she's talking to me. So it's a weird experience today.
Yeah. So bear with us.
Please, thank you. But yes. So surprise destination we're talking about today. So basically what a surprise trip is, I described this a little bit before for you guys, but we went through a surprise travel agency called Pack Up and Go. And there's a bunch of surprise travel agencies out there. There's one called Whim, there's one called The Vacation Hunt, Surprise Me Trips, Blind Experiences. So there's a bunch of them that you can choose, and they all offer different things. Pack Up and Go offers domestic trips within the United States. So we wanted to do a domestic trip within the United States because of everything that's going on with COVID. So we decided to use Pack Up and Go, but there's other surprise travel agencies that do international. So basically we gave them our money and they sent us somewhere. So Katie, do you want to mention a little more about why we went on this surprise trip? I know I briefly mentioned it, but do you want to go into more detail about that?
Yeah, sure. So the last trip that Julia and I went on together was to Hawaii, and it was a really great experience. But the thing is, we had to plan the whole trip ourselves, and a lot didn't happen the way that we wanted it to happen. So we knew that for the next trip, we wanted to do something that was a little bit more organized and more planned. We were thinking about going on a cruise again, but the thing is, with cruise, it's more international, and like Julia said, with COVID, it's just a little bit harder to go on a cruise at this point in our lives. We want to save that. So we definitely wanted to do United States, but we don't really know much about the United States. Like, of course, we know East Coast, New York, Florida, but we wanted to travel more west. And it's kind of hard when you visit states that you don't know because there could be like hidden gems that we're not aware of. And it's kind of hard to find things to do. So we decided to do this surprise destination because we wanted to go somewhere in the United States, but honestly, we were kind of open to different states. Like we would throw out Montana, Colorado, Utah, but like there was never one that was like, we have to go there. It was kind of like, well, I would be down to go anywhere. And the thing is with Pack Up and Go is they give you different recommendations and they plan the flight and the hotel for you, which is something that we really liked because it's something that we didn't have to do ourselves. And it's also nice to hold somebody else accountable. So when you go on these trips, if something happens, we know that we have a contact and that they can help us the best that they can. So that is pretty much why I wanted to go. Julia, were there any specific reasons that you wanted to do this trip?
Yeah, I felt a similar way because in Hawaii, I mean, it was what it was. It was a good trip. It was beautiful and everything, but it just didn't go the way that we wanted it to go, mostly because of COVID. And especially with COVID, it's so much better to just have someone accountable for things rather than trying to figure out all the rules and regulations yourself. We went like somewhat in the beginning of COVID when Hawaii had just opened back up to the public. So everything was just a mess and there was people rushing in and it was just chaos. And I just thought to myself, it would have been so nice if we were just able to hold someone accountable for all the things that went wrong because nothing was our fault. It was just life happened. And I just wanted to avoid that kind of situation again. And now that COVID's ending, I feel a lot better planning things again. I'm planning things like I used to plan things that without COVID getting in the way and everything. So it's just, we want I just wanted accountability and and also I actually heard about Pack Up and Go before. I knew some people that had done it before and they loved it and they were raving about it and saying how much fun their surprise trip was. A friend of mine was sent to St. Petersburg and she in Florida and she loved it. And then my fiance's cousin, I think she was sent to Vermont. They also do road trips. So she chose a road trip and they sent her to Vermont and I think she had a great time too. So Katie and I have a list of all these things we want to do in the future. And I put Pack Up and Go on there. And I remember Katie said to me, she was like, Pack Up and Go, where? Where are we going? And I was like, oh no, that's a surprise travel agency that I wanted to use. And that just kind of sparked all this. And we were like, oh, that would be perfect for now, considering how weird Hawaii was and everything, and how we just want something that's in order already.
Hmm.
So that's kind of my reasoning behind this whole thing. I always wanted to do it, and just because of that experience, it kind of just sparked this whole thing.
Right. So do you want to get into the moment where we decided that we wanted to do it and what that process was like?
Yeah, sure. So we sat down at my computer and they give you a survey. So we went through the survey and they ask you a bunch of questions. They ask you your preferences, like what activities do you like? So I remember we put hiking and cultural things, and what else did we put?
Accessible
Nightclubs.
travel.
Yes. So they asked you what you prioritized in a trip. So I remember we put that we prioritize being able to get around easily and transportation, easy transportation. And they go through all of your survey. They ask you where you're coming from. So I was coming from Florida and Katie was coming from New York. So they ask you what airports you want to come from. So we both put different airports and they would coordinate it. So our flights lined up. And it was just so easy not having to worry about that because that's always annoying when people are coming from different places. I just had to deal with that recently with Puerto Rico, and we're going to talk about that next week. But
Hmm.
it was kind of difficult to plan those flights and arrange them so that way we'd get there at the same time. And it was so nice that Pack Up and Go was willing to do that for us. So that was one of the things they asked on the survey. And Katie, do you remember anything else that they asked?
They just had like a whole bunch of different topics that you could choose from. So it'd be like, art museums, breweries, wine tours, like different things that you prioritize. And it was really nice filling out the survey because sometimes you plan a trip and you don't even know what you want. Like you don't know what you prioritize. So it was just really nice to see it laid out in front of you and be like, oh yeah, like I would go on a hike, or you know what, maybe I'm not going to prioritize shopping as much for this trip. So yeah, they pretty much laid out everything that you could think about in a trip. And then they, from there, oh, they also asked us what states do you not want to go to?
Yeah, so they asked what you states that you're going to soon or states that you had just gone to, as well as states that you do not want to go to. So I think, and I believe that was what they asked. Don't quote me on that, but I'm like 95% sure that's what they asked. and we were just like listing out all these places we didn't want to go and places we had just been, like praying that we'd get sent where we wanted to go. But I think we were very open to pretty much anything except for like a couple places we had already gone together or separately that we just didn't really like that much. But we really did try to keep an open mind with where we'd be sent.
And we just really didn't want a city because that's where we're from. We wanted something that was a little bit different than just a city like Chicago that's so similar to New York City and it's beautiful, but that's just not the trip that we envisioned for ourselves.
Yeah, so at the bottom of the survey, they ask like if there's anything else you want to tell them. So we wrote them like a nice little paragraph about what we wanted, and we said that we don't like big cities. We prefer like I remember we actually told them we wanted the Midwest, and then I realized that we didn't want the Midwest afterwards. We meant like Colorado, which is sometimes considered Midwest, but it's not always considered Midwest. So I actually
It'd
called
be
them.
like Southwest, yeah.
Yeah. So because we wanted like Utah and everything. And I know you don't really get to choose, like we were kind of doing it wrong, but even though you'll see what we got. But I was kind of just trying to like play with our fate. But so I called them up and I was like, oh, we didn't mean the Midwest. We actually meant this. And they were like, okay, we'll put a note on your file. They were really good about it and everything. So it was good that like they were listening to us and everything. That was nice.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
so that was the survey experience. And then do you want to go into what happens next, Katie?
Yeah, so we booked the trip in October and we wanted the trip to be for June. So from October to June, we had no clue where we were going. But they said that throughout the months, they're going to send some sort of clues. So towards June, towards the end of it, they sent us an email that was about the weather. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah, they sent us the weather report for I think like the whole time we'd be there, like each day what it would be. And did they send us, I believe they sent us our flight information in that same email.
Maybe. I just remember the weather because we were trying to guess what location it was based off of the weather, which
Yeah,
was
no, I remember
in the
you were
90s.
saying though you wanted to like cross-reference flights from New
Yes.
York and flights from Florida.
Right, because they would tell you the time that you had to be there. They didn't tell you what flight. So I was
Yeah.
gonna look up online and look up what flights were on, but they actually found a way around that because we ended up taking two flights.
Yes, we had a layover. So even if she
Yeah.
searched up the flights, we would have never found it out anyway. So,
So they're
and
smart.
I was sitting there on my phone when I got the weather email and looking up the weather for like every single city in the country. And I was like, I will find this out. And I didn't figure it out. So I really thought the weather would give it away, but I didn't figure it out. Actually, my mom figured it out. I told my mom the weather and she was like, oh, it's this place. And she was right. But I was like, no way.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really
She,
smart.
yeah, she knew
Donato
right
kind of
away.
guessed that too.
He did, yeah, my fiance, yeah, he did guess it too, but Katie and I were like, "No, you're both wrong. It's definitely." We thought it's Colorado, so I'll tell you right now, it wasn't Colorado. Um, but we thought
Yeah,
it was
because we
Colorado the whole
put
time.
that we wanted to like hike and I don't know. So we really just thought it was going to be Colorado and it wasn't.
Yeah, and the whole time, like Katie actually told people that we were going to Colorado because we were just so sure.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, I'm doing this surprise trip, but it's Colorado." But it
Yeah,
was not Colorado.
because looking through our survey, it just really seemed to line up with Colorado. And I think secretly in our minds, we kind of wanted it. But then thinking about Colorado the whole time, it wasn't a surprise anymore. So it just kind of took the fun out of it if we would have opened the envelope and saw Colorado. So I am
I would
kind
have
of,
been disappointed.
yeah, so I am kind of glad it wasn't Colorado, even though I would have loved it. I would have loved to go there, but yeah, we were just like kind of thinking that the whole time. So I'm glad it wasn't.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about when we opened the envelope and what we're actually supposed to do, but we did not do that?
Yes. So the envelope actually came in the mail pretty quick after that. And what's in the envelope is basically the reveal of where you're going. So when you open the envelope, it says no peeking. And then if you get rid of that piece of paper, it tells you where you're going. And that gives you a folder of all the information. It gives you your travel details with your flight. It gives you a rundown of everything that's in the city, everything about the city where you're going. It gives you your accommodations, your recommendations for food and places to see, some great photo op spots. It gives you ways to get around, a whole sheet about transportation, and it gives you a did you know fact sheet. So it gives you a lot of information about where you're going in this folder. So what you're supposed to do, I believe the folder comes 2 days before you leave. It came a little earlier for us. I believe it came almost a week before we left, actually, but it's supposed to come around 2 days before you leave. And what Pack Up and Go wants you to do is to open the envelope, I believe the night before you leave, like midnight.
Mm.
And we didn't do that because I think we were just so anxious to open it. We opened it, I believe, like 2 days after we got it. And I'm personally glad we did because it was still a surprise. We still went months and months and months of us not knowing where we were going. And because we opened it a little early, we were actually able to plan some of the things that we did there, as opposed to if we opened it just the night before we left, it would have just been chaos. So I'm glad we did what we did. Katie, do you have opinions to say on that?
I'm definitely glad that we did what we did. The thing about Pack Up and Go is that they book the flights, they book the hotel, they book some reservations. It really depends how much you pay. But for us, they booked two reservations at a food place. Everything else was recommendation. So honestly, if we were going to open it at midnight the night before, we would have no itinerary, which for
Mhm.
me is not really okay. I don't mind booking a trip and then planning the itinerary the week before, but I think going to a new state and just having no clue what you're doing, for me, that just doesn't work. I think what we did was a perfect combination of complete surprise for the whole year. We know we have a trip coming, we don't know where, that's fun, but then also a week before planning it ourselves and creating the trip that we want to create while also having a bunch of recommendations that they provided for us. So it was just really the perfect balance.
Exactly. Yeah, they gave us a whole sheet of recommendations, so we knew exactly what to look for, and we kind of based what we booked off of those recommendations. But if we just waited to the last second like they wanted us to do, I mean, I'm sure there is a lot of fun in that, but we still had a lot of fun. Just it was still a surprise for us. It just wasn't a surprise up to the very last second, which I was
Yeah.
completely fine with. And we were able to book things and make reservations, and we booked a tour that we really wanted to go on. So I'm personally very happy with what we did. And if you choose to go on a pack up and go trip, I do recommend the way we did it because it really worked for us. And I would do it the way we did it again. But of course, it's up to you if you really want it to be like a major surprise, like you're just walking on the plane, not even knowing where you're going. Like that sounds so cool too. But I personally like the way that we did it, even though we technically did it wrong.
Yeah, for sure. And like we said, like we booked things in advance that if you are the type of person that you just want to go to a new state blindly, like that's totally fine. But then you don't have the reservations that you might have wanted if you knew ahead of time that you wanted to do that. So there's
Exactly.
pros and cons. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I like how it worked out personally. Katie, should we now share where we went?
Oh, yeah. So this has been a surprise for you guys too.
Yeah, we haven't told them. So,
Yeah.
drum roll, please. We went to New Orleans in Louisiana, and
Yes.
we were actually pretty shocked when we opened it up because, like I said before, we really thought it was Colorado. Katie was telling everyone we were going to Colorado. So,
Literally, even my principal at school, because I'm a teacher, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to Colorado," like literally the day before.
and then they find out you lied.
Yeah, she doesn't know.
That's so funny. So
Yeah,
everyone thinks you went to Colorado. Yeah, I was
literally.
really shocked. And my mom actually called it because they gave us a couple like little hints. They were like, oh, bring an empty stomach because they have good food there. And when I told my mom that, she was like, oh, it's New Orleans. I was like, no, it's not. It's Colorado.
Yeah,
So
we should have known with that part that New Orleans has amazing food, but
yeah, and it really exceeded my expectations, honestly. Like
yeah.
amazing was an understatement. But we'll get more into that. We're going to have a separate podcast on New Orleans because there's just so much to talk about. There's no way we can talk about it in this episode. So we decided to just talk about the surprise experience in this episode. And then we're doing my Puerto Rico episode next week because um I just came back from Puerto Rico, but we didn't really want to talk about that this week because we wanted to talk about this first. So we're doing Puerto
Mhm.
Rico next week, and then maybe in a couple weeks we're going to do the Louisiana podcast. So I'm really excited
Yes.
about that. So we'll get into all the things that we did there and everything, but this is just about the surprise experience.
Yep.
So after that, my initial reaction was I was pretty excited. We went into this with an open mind, and I always wanted to go to New Orleans. Katie, what was your initial reaction to opening it?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. I definitely wanted to go to New Orleans, but it's kind of one of those things I was like, if I find myself there, I'll go. And literally, we just found ourselves there, which I think is really cool because I know of New Orleans, but I don't know all the little things about New Orleans. I just know Bourbon Street. Besides that, I would have no clue where to go. But there were so many different recommendations that they gave to us that we tried out, and it really exceeded all expectations.
I felt the same exact way. I always wanted to go there, but it was never, I never actively planned anything or like even looked into it. I just was always like, oh, it'll be nice to go there one day. And
Hmm.
I actually, I'm not sure if you remember, but when I was planning my bachelorette party, I was like, I either want to go to Texas, New Orleans, Las Vegas, or Nashville. So we wound up going to Nashville, but I really wanted to go to New Orleans and Texas and Las Vegas because I'd never been to those places before. And I actually made it to all those places this year, which was really cool. And I wasn't even
Wow.
trying. Like my dad invited me to Las Vegas. I wound up seeing a concert in Texas just randomly. And then this happened, and I didn't plan this either to go to New Orleans. So the universe just wanted me to go to all those places. So
Love
I,
it.
I wound up in New Orleans through this. So I can't complain. All those places that were on my list got checked off this year. So that was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I
So
would definitely recommend this trip too for a bachelorette party. Anybody out there who's thinking about that?
oh yeah, 100%. I kind of wish we did this, but I feel like it would have went smoother. But that's
Yeah,
another episode.
that's another
So
episode.
so so in the envelope we had our flights laid out for us and everything. So they gave me my flights and they gave Katie her flights. So that's one thing that was a little strange to me. I wish they gave me your flights so I could have just coordinated things in my head also. But they only gave me the times for my flights and they only gave her the times for her flights. But it was fine.
Right.
It all worked out. It's because I mean, I guess they know we were going to coordinate with each other. But
Well, it was actually kind of crazy because so we both met up in North Carolina first and then flew together to New Orleans. And we literally got to the airport within 20 minutes of each other.
yeah, we did. They really planned it out so well.
And do you remember going home? We literally left the airport at the same exact time from New Orleans to Florida and me to New York.
Yeah, we
They
did.
really knew how to book those flights. It was
It was,
amazing.
yeah, it was like clockwork. Everything was perfect. Everything ran so smoothly. And I know they don't have control over the airlines because like if a flight gets delayed, it's delayed. Like they can't Pack up and go can't control that. But
Yeah.
it's just the flights that they picked just lined up so well. Everything was so perfect.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing too, which Julie and I didn't really touch upon, that we could sometimes, when we're booking a trip, want to cheap out a little bit when it comes to flights or when it comes to hotels. And it was kind of nice to just give our money to somebody else that we're okay and comfortable spending and be like, okay, now you book something around this. Like we were kind of saying, if we were going to book a trip to New Orleans, we would have stayed at like the absolute cheapest hotel, probably got completely different time flights, but it was cheaper. So it was actually nice to have somebody else who took our money and planned it the best possible way.
Yeah, that really was nice. And especially because we stayed in such a nice hotel. And I probably would not have considered that hotel at all. Like we would have stayed in like this junky motel. And
Yeah,
we actually pointed out a motel that we probably would have stayed in. And then a week
budgeting.
later, I looked at the news and it burned down.
That's the thing.
So
Like
yeah,
you really like I don't want to say like you get what you pay for, but like you kind of do.
you
And
do.
it's
Yeah.
just nice when you're not planning it because I feel like we all try to be frugal with our money, but like you can budget your money and still have nice things, which we'll make a podcast episode about that for sure.
Yes, especially because the overall theme of my blog is budget travel and showing you that you can do nice things for not that much money. So
Hmm.
I think this is a prime example of it because we really only spent, I think we only spent $1,400 on this trip per person.
Mhm.
and we stayed in a really nice hotel. It was
Right, that's something we didn't mention before. Like the first thing that Pack Up and Go asks you is the dates that you want to go on and your budget. So our budget, I think it was like 4 nights and 5 days, and I think it was $1,200 that we gave to them. So they booked the hotel for us, the flights for us, and if they had anything extra, they would have booked extra activities for us based on our preferences. But we didn't have anything left over from that. They spent it all on the hotel and the flights, which I was completely fine with.
how long we were there? We were there for 5 days, right?
Yeah, I think it was 4 nights and 5 days.
Yeah, and I think that they really made our budget stretch as far as it could with that. It really worked out great. We got a nice hotel. It was really conveniently located. And so there is ways to do this cheap and still get good out of it because yeah, just saying like I would normally choose a cheap hotel, but it was not a cheap hotel, but we still got so much out of it just because of the location and we got good flights. It just everything worked out so well. So it's a lesson to
Yeah.
be learned from this.
Check out Julia's blog post. Julia's gonna post a blog post about it soon, and she'll include pictures of it. Like it was an absolutely gorgeous hotel that we would not have allowed ourselves to stay in. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's called the Ace Hotel and it's a boutique type hotel. And I'm starting to get more into boutique hotels actually. I stayed in one
Mm.
in Texas also, and I really do enjoy them. They all have like their own special charm and everything. I do like them better than the chains, even though I actually think Ace Hotel might be a chain. I'm pretty sure it is. But it was like a
Oh.
boutique hotel type feel. And I'm gonna write a blog post on it. I have been working on it. I've just been backed up because new ones keep coming up, but that one is in the works. So we will link that when it's available. And yeah, the Ace Hotel was really awesome. And I'm so glad we stayed there. And I recommend if you're going to New Orleans, you should stay there too. This is
Yeah, we'll
not
get more into
an
that when we do the New
advertisement.
Orleans episode. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, definitely. So should we talk about how we started to plan based on the information we were given?
Yeah, sure.
So where we went from after getting the packet and planning the activities that we planned.
Yeah.
So the activity that we planned for ourselves was an airboat tour through the bayou. We knew we really wanted to go to the bayou, and we were actually talking about the bayou a couple months before we went. So it just was perfect. We were like, oh, we finally get to go to the bayou. So they did recommend to us a tour company, which we wound up not using because they recommended kayak swamp tours. And I'm sure it's a great tour company. They gave us all the information and everything, but we did not want to kayak through the bayou, number one, because we have ocean kayak together before and we were just tired. We just did not want to do it again.
We're not the
And
strongest people in the world.
yeah, you need a man. So we decided and especially because alligators, like it's scary. There's alligators all over the bayou. And I mean, if you're
Yeah, I
into
don't know how
that,
to fend
then
them off.
I don't. I would just like I wouldn't do anything honestly. I was gonna say I would like whack them with the oar, but I probably wouldn't even. I'd just
You
scream
just
and
sit
die.
there and scream. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to think I'd have more confidence than and yeah, I wouldn't do anything. I would just scream. So
Yeah.
we decided that's probably not for us. And I mean, they do give recommendations that are really great. A lot of the recommendations worked out for us, but that one not so much. So we kind of put a twist on the recommendation and we booked an airboat tour. And I'm so glad we did because if we waited till the last second, we wouldn't have gotten that tour probably. And it was such a great tour. I'd say that made the trip.
Yeah, and we actually got the more expensive package where they pick us up at the hotel and we get a smaller boat. And it's the kind of thing, like you said, like if we would have gotten there the day of, that we probably wouldn't have had that option of even
Yeah.
having that.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
either wouldn't have been able to go or we would have had to go on like the big huge boat with like 100 people that it held or something like that. But our boat only held 8 people. And so it was really cool. It was like a very nice interactive experience. Our guide like kissed an alligator. It was really cool. And we got to feed the alligators too, but it was close. It was not too close for comfort. We felt safe and everything. It was very comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get more into detail about it when we talk more about Louisiana. But so they offer that as a recommendation, and we kind of planned that whole day around going on that swamp tour, which like we said, if we would have found out like the day of that we were going there, we couldn't have done.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we went about planning things. We used their recommendations, but we also kind of modified them and made them our own. So I thought
Hmm.
that was a lot of fun. So they also recommended a ghost tour, which we wound up not doing. We decided it did sound really cool, but the more we thought about it, we just didn't want to have to walk around with a group and listen about things we didn't really care about. So it sounded fun at first, but and I'm sure it is a lot of fun. I've never been on a ghost tour, and I'd like to do one eventually. It just wasn't totally appealing to us at that
Right.
time.
And we're kind of saying like know thyself, like a ghost tour sounds amazing. But then we're like, let's actually put ourselves in our future people's like future selves shoes where it's like, I don't know, like a ghost tour, like walking around the city, it's hot, it's sweaty. Like maybe there's something else that we would enjoy more instead of just like that sounds cool. It's like, does that sound cool to us for our trip?
Yeah, and it wasn't appealing at the time. There was so many other things we'd rather be doing. And
Hmm.
like hiking, they recommended a hike to us, which we wound up doing, and that was interesting. I don't want to get too much into detail with that because we're going to be talking about that again in another podcast, so I don't want to talk about it twice. But
Interesting is
um
definitely a good word.
yeah, I have nothing more to say about that except it was
Yeah.
interesting. And if you are planning to go hiking in Louisiana, just know what you're getting into. There's a lot of bugs, so I'm gonna stop right there and just say that there's a lot of bugs. So
Yeah. Wait until you listen to our future podcast before you decide to book a hike in Louisiana.
yeah, and if you happen to be going there before our podcast comes out, please look it up before you make your decision because you might want to turn around.
We'll pray for you for sure.
Yes. That's all we'll say about that for now. So if you want to find out more about that, make sure you tune into the New Orleans podcast that we're going to make.
Yes. But yeah, I feel like that was pretty much our pack up and go experience in general. Like we said, we're going to get more in detail about New Orleans in a future episode, but personally, I loved using pack up and go. I think it's so hard to plan everything yourself, and like we said, so many things can go wrong and you don't have any hold anybody accountable when you do it yourselves, but we didn't even call up pack up and go. Like honestly, they planned everything so well that we didn't even need their customer service line.
No, not at all. But like the one time I did use their customer service line to tell them that I didn't want to go to the Midwest. They were so like accommodating and everything. Like they were there when we needed them and everything. So I would 100% do this again.
I really do. And this time I'm going to mention a little bit more west
Uh-huh.
because I think it would be so much fun to go on a trip to like Utah or Wyoming because that's someplace we have no clue about that they can give us recommendations and book things for us. So if you're looking for something with that kind of energy, then I would definitely recommend this travel agency.
I'd really recommend it to anyone because they have, like I said before, they have road trips. So my fiance's cousin took a road trip from New York to Vermont, and they also have day trips. They have a lot of different things that really cater to all different types of people. So I think that's amazing. And I really think anyone should do it, even if you're just looking to get away for a couple of days. They work with your budget, they make it exactly what you're looking for. We really had no complaints about it. It was amazing.
I think it was just a super balanced trip. It was everything that we want and it was a surprise.
It was, yeah. And that's not to say that you can't book a trip yourself and have it be great. I mean, I've booked many trips myself that have turned out great. I just came back from Puerto Rico and I booked it all myself and it was amazing. But
Mhm.
sometimes you just want a little accountability on someone else. You just want to sit back and relax. And that was what this was. And it was just so perfect.
And especially too, like for people who are just really open, like they really don't have a clear cut destination. Like you knew you wanted to go to Puerto Rico, so you planned it. But for some other people, it's kind of like, well, I know the kind of vibe or energy that I want to go for, but I literally have no clue the specific place, which is
Hmm.
pretty cool.
Yeah. So we'll definitely be doing this again.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much all we have to say about it, right? It was just amazing.
Yeah, sure. Should we talk about the travel blog and what we have to offer?
Yeah, so actually kind of inspired us to start something a little similar, but not to this extent. So along with travel recommendations that we will make for you if you're going somewhere because we've been a lot of places, we know what's good in a lot of places, so we can give you specific recommendations. So along with that and along with travel advice, we also offer a choose my destination service, which is very similar to this, except we will not really be booking it for you. We're just going to analyze your preferences and choose where we think you should go, which is similar to this, but without so much commitment. So I think that's really cool. And we have a very reasonable price that we're offering it for. So I think if you want to check that out, you can go to www.runwaysandbyways.com. I almost forgot the name of my own blog. And you could check that out. And it's really awesome that it's super fun. It's been really fun for us to plan out these things for people. And we've been to a lot of places, so we know what a lot of these things offer, and we know what the perfect place to go would be for a lot of people. So
Mhm.
yeah, check it out.
Yeah, please. We're dying to help people.
Yeah, so that's that.
So should we get to the trivia answer?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. So I'm going to repeat the question again. The question is, what category did Ireland win its first Olympic gold medal in? And again, we said it's a little crazy. It's not your typical sport. That is the only hint that I'm giving you. I mean, I don't even want to say sport
Oh god,
category.
it's not a sport.
No.
Oh,
They
not-
kind of made it a sport at the time, but it's not really a sport at all.
oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it still in the Olympics? Can I
No,
just have that hint? Oh
it is
no.
not. It was only in the
Wow.
Olympics, I believe, for like 4 years, but don't quote me.
Wow. Okay. I don't
But
really.
I think it would be really, really cool if they still had it. I don't know if I'd watch it, but I would be like, wow, that's cool.
Wow. Okay. I can't even think of anything. That's crazy. Okay. I have no idea. I'm gonna
It's hard,
say,
yeah.
like, I can't even think of anything you'd compete in that's not a sport. Okay. You know what I'm gonna say? I'm just gonna say it, and it's really dumb, but
Okay.
trivia. Only because it's not a sport and it's something competitive, but I know it's wrong and it's really stupid. But
That would actually be really cool. Like the top, I mean, that's kind of like Jeopardy though.
yeah, right? But it's the only thing I can think of that's competitive and not a sport.
That would actually be kind of cool if they had that in the Olympics, like the top brains of different countries competing.
Yeah, right? That would I
I
feel
mean,
like
it'd
that would
probably
be
be a
really
language
fun.
barrier, but yeah, it would be fun.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um, yeah, so trivia is not the answer.
I
Sorry.
figured.
The answer is painting.
Painting, really?
So people used to compete against each other. I don't know if it was to draw specific paintings or it was kind of like who's the
Wow.
best painter, but yeah, somebody from Ireland won that and that was their first win. I think it was in 1924.
Wow. But you know what?
Yeah.
I feel like painting and art in general is just so subjective. So how can you compete in that? I really wonder how that worked and like what they were judged on and everything.
Maybe that's why they took it out.
Probably.
But it would be kind of cool. Like I said, I don't know if I'd watch it, but I would check out the Instagram highlights after
Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't watch that either. It probably gets so boring. I think trivia would be more fun to
it.
watch. But
Trivia would be more fun if people figured out how to translate things. I think that would be really cool.
yeah. Wow, that's so interesting.
Yep. So
And I was actually thinking in my head this morning about your trivia question that you're gonna pick, and I was in my head, I was like, Katie's gonna pick something so easy. I got this in the bag.
wow.
Yeah, I was not even close.
I told you to expect the unexpected.
All right, well, I'm gonna make yours extra hard next week.
Oh, I'll get it.
No, you won't.
Okay. Well.
Anyways. So
All right.
thank you everyone so much for tuning in. As a reminder, you could check out my blog at www.runwaysandbyways.com. You could check out my Instagram at Runways and Byways. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're listening on Spotify, please give us 5 stars because it really, really helps us out to keep continuing doing what we're doing. So
Yes.
thank you so much. Whether your plane is taking off from the runway,
Or you're driving down a byway.
we'll be your guides
Through it all.